Welcome to the program. I'm Linda Ogutu, a sign language interpreter. At the bottom end of your screen is Damien Evans. Now, Kenyans should brace themselves for a tough month ahead following the significant increase in fuel prices announced by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. In the latest review, super petrol will retail at 115.18 cents per litre, an 8.19 shilling increase. Diesel at 101.91, which represents a 5.51 shilling jump, and kerosene at 92.44 shillings in Nairobi, and an increase of about 5 shillings and 32 cents. And in Mombasa, petrol will retail at 112.78 cents, diesel at 99 shillings and 52, and 90.05 shillings for kerosene. Fuel prices will be highest in Mandera, where super petrol will retail at 128 shillings and 22 cents. Diesel at 114.95 and kerosene at 105.47. Now, the EPRA has attributed the rise in fuel prices to the increase in the average landed cost of the three products, as well as the appreciation of the US dollar to the Kenya shilling exchange rate by 0.57%. So you need to just note the change in the fuel prices. That will take effect, I think, for midnight today. So there will be a little bit of changes. Now, following the latest review, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, COTU, condemned IPRA for what it termed as outrageous and insensitive. In a statement to newsrooms, COTU said that the move to raise the fuel prices is an affront to workers and all Kenyans at a time when they're still reeling from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. COTU also blamed cartels for the rise in prices and warned that businesses in Kenya are on the brink of further collapse. COTU now wants the Energy Ministry to intervene in the matter to avert widespread protests. Okay, let's see if we can get to speak to Kwame Owino, who is the CEO, Institute of Economic Affairs, an economist in his own right. I just want him to break down this for you, what essentially it means. Kwame, lots of fingers are being pointed at the regulatory authority, but what Kenyans really do not understand is that we import oil as a nation, and we had to get here. So explain to Kenyans how we got to where we are.
Right. Thank you very much. So I think many things explain this. The first is that petroleum is imported into Kenya because Kenya doesn't have its own reserves of petroleum yet. I mean, so obviously the international price is what determines what the prices will be here. In addition to that, it has to be transported through ships that bring oil all the way from obviously the Middle East into Kenya, and then obviously transported again by the pipeline. So what that means is the greater the distance is from Mombasa, the overall, the higher the overall cost will be at all of other parts of these countries. So it's a reflection of the fact that it is an imported product. It is bought in dollars. So the exchange rate between the shilling and the dollar also does determine that. But the most important thing is that this is not necessarily the EPRA's fault because about 10 years ago, Parliament passed a law based on public complaints that oil companies were actually colluding. The complaint was that oil companies were colluding to actually gouge prices in terms of getting more money than would be deserved. So Parliament drew a law. That law led the EPRA to develop a formula, and it is this formula that is fed every month and generates new prices as it is. So what it reflects today are the conditions globally in terms of the Kenya shilling against the dollar, but also the fuel prices, because in December, the fuel prices were $49 per barrel. In January, the prices have moved up to 55. So all those reflect in the new prices that will be operating from tomorrow.
Okay, so fingers are being pointed unfairly at the authority. Tell me, Kwame, what is the impact of this? Fuel prices have gone up. Looking at what Kenyans went through in the last year during the COVID pandemic, what does this translate to? Because there will be trickle-down effect.
Certainly. And I think the first effect will probably be, and I hope this doesn't happen immediately, but the first effect will probably be you'll see transportation costs, especially for urban areas. Fares could go up. Partly, of course, because fuel is a major ingredient in transportation. It is also known that the two major drivers of inflation in Kenya tend to be fuel costs on the one side, and obviously the prices of food. So if both of them rise, then obviously we will see inflation. In other words, the prices of goods in general will begin to go up. So if you put all those two together, it's just showing that the pressure on people's pockets, if I may say so, will definitely be higher on account of the fact that fuel is an imported product. I think the determinants of its price have all gone risen, and that necessarily means that transport costs might be higher. Of course, the cost of transportation of goods and services might be higher, and obviously in manufacturing farms, some manufacturing farms do use diesel and petroleum for manufacturing, so we might see some goods some goods as well rise in prices relative to, of course, their prices in December and January.
How long do you see this going on for, Kwame, the up and down, and specifically with respect to the fuel price going up? Let me pick your mind.
Well, it just tells us that, I mean, if the decision was made, it's a wrong decision, because one of the things that the price, the monthly announcement of the prices does is it gives people the impression that there's a price, there's a price control element. But if you have a product that is imported, the degree to which government can control prices is actually quite limited. And so it just depends on what the domestic conditions are. Because of the COVID shock, unfortunately, it's going to be much more serious than people would have anticipated. But I think what we need to ask ourselves is, having a formula that determines the price, giving the impression that EPRA controls the prices when it doesn't, or having the price determined by the markets through competition between the farms, which is the more preferable one. Our view at the IEA is that the earlier price was more, the earlier method was more preferable, but this is a decision that has been made. Unless this law is reformed, we have to be clear that every 1 month we'll see the fluctuations in prices in ways that sometimes would be unpleasant and other times would be more pleasant, as happened most of last year when prices, when fuel prices actually went down. So that's something to leave. So it's not like there's a silver bullet. I think it's just a choice that is made. If the EPRA has to enforce the formula, then this is what needs to happen. If we leave it all together to farms to compete, there'll also be price movements here and there, but at least the farms will be determining for themselves what those prices are, and Kenyans may not like that. So this is a choice about what decision we prefer.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Checkpoint. Kwame Owino, CEO, Institute of Economic Affairs. What he basically says is that your cost of living is likely to go up from tomorrow. Let's see how that goes. We'll keep an eye on it for you. Let's focus on politics now. ODM leader Raila Odinga has joined his handshake partner Uhuru Kenyatta in daring Deputy President William Ruto to resign from